Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Gulfport number FR120. This is called a pressure clamp assembly. Let's go with it this way, forgive me. Pressure clamp assembly. Compression anchor, compression lug, drywall anchor. I know that there are other manufacturers that will have their unique name for this type of anchor. This is the type of anchor, and this design will be certainly quite generic. This type of anchor is what you're going to see exclusively in drywall frames or in knockdown borrowed lights that are built like a drywall frame. So almost 30 years ago, when I was initially learning the terminology, drywall and masonry, drywall anchors, masonry anchors, the question is, I don't understand why you would call it that. Then as you go along, you start to realize it's talking about the application generally. Masonry anchors are meant to go to some sort of a wall that's going to be built out of some sort of masonry, brick, block, cement, concrete, precast. Something other than an interior partition would be typical for a masonry frame. A masonry frame will have dust boxes behind the hinge preparations and the strike preparation, and that would not be appropriate for partition style construction because those dust boxes, if you have a welded frame, as they slide the drywall in, they kind of don't allow the penetration of drywall to get all the way into the back of the frame, as might possibly be what the installer wants. I've gotten calls from people that says, yeah, you sent me welded frames, these are partition. A guy said, you have a copy of the blueprints, don't you? That's how the conversation starts. Yes, of course I do. Well, you sent me masonry frames, welded masonry frames. Yep, that's right. They're all welded frames on those interior partitions. That's what was specified. Well, I can't get I had to notch my drywall around the dust boxes. Okay, stop. Why did you do that? There's adequate penetration based on code for the drywall to get behind the frame. It's completely code compliant. Yeah, well, I like the drywall to go all the way back up to the rabbet. Okay, well, okay. So as you go through those sorts of scenarios, you start to put together the pieces of how you'll use these frames and in what particular applications. Masonry frames can go in drywall partitions. You can take a drywall frame and put it into a masonry application if you want. But when you start to understand the inherent differences between the two is when you can start to leverage your knowledge to solve your client's problem using that information appropriately and determining what's the best approach. What frame am I going to start with? Well, in the world of a drywall compression anchor, or a pressure clamp assembly as Gulfport calls it, this is going to be for a adjusting anchor, people will also call it. Generally is going to be used, as a rule, will be used in interior partitions where the frame is going in 3 pieces after the drywall is already up, meaning the framing has been done, the drywall is now up, the rough openings have been left to the proper size based on what you've told your client for knockdown drywall frames, which is in general inch and a half larger than the nominal door width and 3/4 inch larger than the nominal height. Translation, a 3070 is going to need 37.5 by 84 3/4 rough opening. I've also had people order these included in welded frames because they literally want to use this as a way to bring their frame plumb. And it will do that, certainly. When you install it just in its native perspective, when you take a knockdown drywall frame, it's going to have these compression anchors. The more you turn those bolts, the more you can make it do this way, or this way, or this way. You can definitely do that. But it's not really intended to bring your frame to plumb at all. It's not intended for that. What happens in a knockdown drywall frame, generally the header will go up, and then you'll take one jam leg and you'll stick it in like this, then the other jam leg and you'll stick it in like that. Well, the header and the jams basically have a backing plate on your jam, a miter on the header, and when the two are brought together, that backing plate forces itself to meet the header. It can't move anymore vertically or horizontally. And it can do like this, but that miter will then draw them theoretically to a 90-degree angle. And once you've got the frame at a 90 and the jambs are square, plumb, square, level, plumb, and true. Square, those are the 4 cardinal rules of frame installation. Square, level, plumb, and true. And if you are on a job site doing an audit for doors that don't close, square, level, plumb, and true. And if you don't have those conditions on your installer's end result, there's no problem that you're there to solve, because it's not square, level, plumb, or true. You can pull up definitions of that stuff. The Steel Door Institute is the national reference of all things that govern. Well, Steel Door Institute and the Hollow Metal Manufacturers Association, HMMA, they publish documents that are the governing rules by which the industry marches to. So once you've got your jambs in, they're locked into the header. As you move that screw, you turn it counterclockwise. As I do that, excuse me one moment. I've just got a screw gun here to make it quick and easy. I've got this drawn down to its maximum closed. As I turn that screw counterclockwise, you can see how that plate moves. We all remember high school science. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. As you turn that screw counterclockwise, it forces the plate to go that way against the studs. What does that do to the jamb? It forces it to go that way. So as you turn both of those drywall compression anchors counterclockwise, lugs go out, jambs come in. You balance those so that you are locked in the header. Your jamb is square, plumb, level, and true, is what you're looking for. If you have large enough frames, if you've got 10-foot frames, you're going to see 2 of these in your opening. You can have drywall, you can have knockdown browed lights. You'll see compression anchors installed. And that's what this is for. This is going to be a wipe coat wipe coat galvanized is what it appears to be. A steel-based product that's galvanized. I keep holding it this way. This is how it goes in. This is the lug plate that's going to hit the stud. That will be installed in such a way to maximize surface area. Let's take some dimensional properties. Overall width, about 3 1/4. Overall height, about 1 1/4 inches. Now, this flange that I'm measuring now, about 3 3/4 by maybe 5/8, 3/4 inch. You have to drill a small access hole for the head of that screw to come in, or to give you access to it. So you're going to locate a hole in the top of the jamb, far enough down so that you can get it installed, without looking at a knockdown drywall frame. 3 inches down, 4 inches down, it's not really going to matter. The diameter of the head itself is 0.334, so I might give myself 3/8 of an inch hole. I'm going to center that so that I can get access with my screwdriver to the head of the screw. These flanges are where you weld it to the back of the frame. They're welded, is how they are. You lay your jamb down. You're going to drill your hole. You're going to lay your jamb down with the throat up. You're going to bring your anchor in, locate it. You're going to hold it in place, and you're going to weld it. The client that this anchor is going to, spoke to him earlier today, in fact, said, hey, how are you attaching those anchors to drywall frames? Because for someone to order drywall compression anchors on their own is very unusual. And what that always means is, and it was the case in this situation, they sent me the wrong frames. They probably got masonry frames. These are partition frames. They sent them knockdown masonry frames is what they did. Studs are already up. Drywall's already up. Why not use just a metal stud anchor? You can't. The drywall's already up. Metal stud anchor will snap into the throat of the frame, bend the tabs over, and screw it to the side of the studs. The drywall's already up. You can't cut all that drywall away and redo all of that. So certainly in this case, drywall's already up. Studs and drywall are up. This client is going to literally screw these to the frame. And he said, put Bondo, and I'm really not sure how he plans on doing that. You would need quite a thin head screw, so he's probably just going to use maybe a flathead screw with a finish washer, maybe a pan head screw, machine screw, a round head machine screw. Drill a hole through these flanges, put a couple of nuts on the back, a lock washer, tighten it down. Now you're going to see knockdown drywall frames installed in countless applications. Your favorite coffee shop, whichever of the two that it is, or three, they all have knockdown drywall frames in the bathrooms. Hardly not one of them stays square, plumb level, and true. Hardly not one of them. Bathroom, door will close, it rubs against the frame. That's because they've used a knockdown drywall frame. The problem with knockdown drywall frames is the only thing that's anchoring it at the top of the jamb is compression. There's no thread lock on this at all. There is no way to make sure that this stays tight. Thread lock would really be a great improvement to this, and I would certainly want to have thread lock, because why? As the door closes and cycles and closes and cycles and cycles and cycles, there's vibration. You've got tension. Sure enough, a microscopic amount, those screws are going to want to what would be loosen over time, and they do, and those frames get loose. Vibration will cause that. Interestingly enough, many, many, many decades ago, a design of lock used on safes, a safe lock, combination lock, okay? You imagine a 1,000-pound safe, and you're looking at it, and there's a rotary dial there. Well, the wheel packs that are in those are going to be 3 or 4. They have a notch cut out in them that is called the gate. Well, the fence that's connected to the ability to whether or not that bolt's going to retract is going to fit into that gate. And if it can't fit in there, then it doesn't drop down far enough for the bolt to retract. Well, if you considered that round wheel pack and that it's got a notch cut in it, it's not going to be the same weight measured all the way around the circumference. So on ships that were constantly vibrating, they noticed that the heavier part went to the bottom, and that sitting long enough without being disturbed, all of those wheel packs would align with the gate at the top. Someone could go up and just open the safe. Same sort of concept, the vibration, knocking that loose. Drywall compression anchors, drywall frames, are really the least desirable in all instances. Why do people buy them? Because they didn't plan ahead. Like, frames can't get to the job site soon enough, or cost. Knockdown drywall frames are super cheap and easy in the sense of there's no welding done to them. You don't have to think about them until it's time to until the carpet's being delivered, is how it seems. So knockdown drywall frames are really easy to install. I've personally put in a half a day work, you can install 10 doors because they're just so easy. And a lot of people will get those frame parts up loose, and they'll literally hang their door to it and then use the door as a means by which to shim the entire frame to make it square, plumb, level, and true. So they're a last resort, but the good news is they are a resort, so that you can get a point where you can salvage a situation that is otherwise unsalvageable. And that's the realm of the drywall compression anchor. Often thought of as the worst possible thing that you can do in commercial construction, and at the same time praised because it was able to salvage a job. Now, a quick sketch on what this is going to look like in your frame. We're going to draw a drywall frame. Here's a cross-section of your drywall frame. Just outrageously out of scale. Back bend returns here and here. Okay, so it's going to reside in underside of the stop, and assuming that your stop height is 5/8. It's going to look like that. I may have that. I've got that drawn backwards. Anyway, it doesn't really matter the fact that it's drawn backwards. As you move that screw, that plate's going to come down. The question becomes is, assuming that you've got a 5/8 stop, which you certainly are, most certainly will. The question becomes is, what is the rough opening required for this unit? So if I were to take this anchor at its minimum and measure from what would be the inside of the jam to the back of the lug, you know, we're basically going to be at 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/4. So 1 1/4 minus 5/8 is going to be 5/8. Okay, 5/8 at a minimum. 1 1/4 from here to here. If my projection of my stop is 5/8, just using round numbers, that's going to leave me with 5/8 from the rabbet of the frame to how far this is going to stick out. I had said earlier that your width is going to be 1 1/2 greater. Well, 5/8 over here projecting, 5/8 over here projecting is 1 1/4. So if you've left it 1 1/2, you're going to be able to turn that screw counterclockwise and get it to tighten down. So 1 1/2, I would really say an inch and 3/8 would be the absolute minimum for a rough opening. If I brought that all the way out to where it's just barely connected, I would be able to make that rough opening into a maximum dimension. That's about 2 13/16 minus 5/8. It's about 2 inch. Okay, so roughly speaking, so you could literally have a rough opening so big that it's wider than the frame itself. So as a minimum, it's 1 1/2 is the answer. As a minimum of 1 3/8 out to whatever that doesn't exceed your requirements. If it's a fire rated opening, this would not be fire rated. This client could not be field assembling drywall compression anchors into a frame and expect the integrity of the fire rating to be intact. It wouldn't be. Technically, it wouldn't be. Not technically, it wouldn't be is the bottom line. I didn't ask the client if they were fire rated frames. As I backed that out, it went out quite far. So a lot of guys, a lot of installers, they make it 2 inches bigger and 1 inch bigger. It works. No doubt. The dimension I've been using for 30 years is 3/4, 3/4, 3/4. There you go. And that's how we go about doing that. So we've talked a lot about drywall compression anchors. This is what it is. If you have any questions about it or how to install them or how to use them, etc., please feel free to reach out to us. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the DKS products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the DKS FR120, pressure clamp assembly, or any other DKS product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.